I think businesses should all be regenerative. And when I say regenerative, and I've thought about this a lot as to what this term means. And for me, it's about giving more than you take.
I'm not sure if this is for you, but do you want to create products and experiences with the potential to become iconic? Then this podcast is for you. Welcome to Conversations with Roberto. Here I sit down with top entrepreneurs, innovators, designers, founders, and thought leaders. And I'm driven by curiosity and seek to unpack actionable and meaningful insights for you. Because as a designer, I believe I have an obligation to create more than just well-designed products and experiences. These creations must serve a clear purpose, embody innovation, perform exceptionally, and exhibit an outstanding quality. In essence, my goal is to guide you in building iconic products and experiences that matter and get people talking about you. Just imagine, with this knowledge, we can create a better future for all of us. I'm Roberto Inderbitzin, the founder of Freeframe.design, an internationally active, purpose-driven design studio based here in Zurich, Switzerland. There is a great story in the book when you were talking your first product that you
Yes.
launched, the razor, or your own product. And I mean, it looks easy from the outside, design a product, produce a product, but after that, the sales,
It was
the the shipping, and that's such a headache.
it was definitely the product that made us realize that we were designers and not salesmen. And I have no interest of going through that process again for a long time anyway. It was stressful, but really, really insightful to fully understand the logistics of ordering and shipping and managing warehouse stock and everything of a product. And it's equally important to understand as a designer what happens to your product after they're designed.
I think it's super important. I mean, it's something that you can talk with your client and they're like, okay, they got us. They understand what we hassle every day. I like the part where you're putting the trolley on the streets.
Yes.
That's just that was painful. Anyhow, so I like to start the question, like the cocktail question. So when you're having a cocktail or beer at the bar and somebody asks you, so what do you do and why do you do that?
Well, what do I do? We design physical products. And so anything that gets manufactured at scale, by that I mean it's not a single one off piece of craft we will work on. It can range from packaging to luggage to tech to tableware. It's a real kind of variety of things that we work on, and all with a really thoughtful approach to what that product means, what's that experience that we're creating, and what's the impact of that product in its life and at the end of its life.
And what drove you to design physical products?
Well, I was fortunate. My school, we had product design as an A level, and that's becoming more rare in schools in the UK. And I was able to take a small class. There wasn't very many of us. We had a lot of attention from the teacher, and we got to experiment with different materials and make different things. And I made a table and a lamp, shelving, and really just loved the sort of hands-on tactility of making something real, making something physical. And there was a logical step to just take that curiosity and passion for a subject into university. So there I was studying it at university. And once you have a degree in something, you feel like you need to use it. And here we go. Here I am.
The one thing is designing it and building it, but then you decided to start your own studio,
Yes.
which it's a big
It's a,
step,
um,
especially yeah,
yeah.
it is a big step anyhow, whatever it
People
is.
say it's a big step. I think at the time it just felt like a series of small steps, to be honest. I wasn't on my own. And I think that I am now the sole founder and the kind of chief of Morama. But at the time, I had a friend from university who was really keen to start a studio together. And I think that when there's two of you, everything feels a little bit less scary because you have each other. And he was really, really keen. And I was already just working freelance. So it was such a small step for me to go from working under my own name to then working under a company name. Not to say that I was an established freelancer. I had been doing it for like less than 6 months. And yeah, most of my income came from a part time design assistance job that I had where I was basically just a CAD monkey. So I still had that role. It wasn't as if I just packed up everything, started with a complete blank piece of paper and said, right, now let's create a business. It was just a series of small steps that over time I let go of any other work. I solely focused on Morama. A year later, Rob, who I'd started the business with, left. And so by that point, it had been a year. I knew the sort of ins and outs of what we were doing, and it just slowly happened bit by bit. So it seems like a big step to people from the outside. But honestly, from the inside, it really was just one foot in front of the other.
I mean, now it seems that a lot of designers after uni they go and build their own design studios. Or it's more common. I think 10 years ago it wasn't that common. I don't feel here. I don't know. It's how in the UK.
Certainly not any that come to mind from my immediate circle of like design peers. There were a couple that subsequently started their own teams, and I obviously know them well because it's not a big kind of community in the UK. But yeah, I think it's become more common because there's less jobs. So now designers have no choice. I mean, if they want to work, you either set up by yourself to some capacity, whether that's just taking the odd kind of piece of freelance work here and there, or you become employed. And if there's no employers taking on juniors, then you kind of only have one option. So I think there are more people taking that jump, taking that risk, but it's a lesser of two scenarios. I mean, either way, if you have no money, you have no job, you've got to start somewhere. So yeah, and I think also there's a bit of a pressure and a bit of a squeeze on the creative industry at the moment. It's if businesses are not doing that well, and there's been a lot of big companies posting poor profit, not meeting their revenue targets, and so a lot of the time, the reaction to that, which I think in some cases is not the right reaction, but is the reaction nonetheless, is that companies will double down on what they're currently doing rather than invest heavily in new product development.
Yeah, that's something that I don't get that one. Or
Yeah.
they still do
And
that.
so that might mean that they cut creative budgets, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they don't want to bring in that creativity. So they may seek smaller, more agile teams, smaller, maybe work with freelancers over an agency, for example. And and that means that there is opportunity there for those who are kind of entering the career and looking for opportunities if they find ways to take them.
True. At the beginning, you started actually working more with startups. Is that right? And at the moment, you're still with startups and also like established brands. Do you feel that there's a lot of startups want to be like these huge brands, or they want to stay lean and innovative? And when is the shift when they like stopping this innovative? Do you see something from your side?
Most startups don't have a huge amount of foresight. Like they might have a 5-year plan, but I don't know how many actually stick to that. It's mostly put together for investors. But I do think that there's real enjoyment in the sort of early stage, lean, agile nature of companies. And firstly, we love working with them during that phase. And I think that there's definitely sort of an excitement, within the companies as well. When there is increasing pressure from investors, then it becomes and as you grow, by nature, the risks become higher. Releasing a product when you are a brand that nobody knows and something goes wrong with that product, nobody cares. But if you've got millions of customers and you bring something out or you release an update to something and it doesn't land as you expected, it can really, really damage your reputation. There is an increasing level of risk and therefore sort of everything slows down a little bit. I don't think that most companies these days want to be as slow and immobile as the really big corporates. Like, who would want that? Nobody. There's not even a level of security that comes with that. It's just sluggishness and an inability to move and adapt. So I think there's definitely the other way, perhaps, there's big companies seeking to actively work more lean and be more agile because you need to adapt in the world that we live in right now. Everything is changing. Regulations are changing. Political landscape is changing. You could be slapped with tariffs and suddenly you need to move your whole supply chain around. The Suez Canal gets blocked and your stock doesn't land for 6 months. Like everything is up in the air. And I think with climate change on top of that, we're only going to see things become more unpredictable.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's something that we as designers, we are tend to look into the future. I mean, we design into the future, we don't design for the now. That's a part of, yeah, I think that's something that we can actually contribute a lot to the companies. But as you mentioned, like when you do a product that is going to be sold hundreds, thousands, millions of times, how do you handle that pressure? Or how do you look into designing a product that is going to be relevant in 5 years or in 2 years when they launch it or even longer?
I mean, if we can get it right once, then we don't worry too much about how many times it's going to be made because it's crazy when you think about it if it's in, in terms of millions or tens of millions of units. But at the same time, you have a responsibility to think about the impact of that at that scale. So the positive impact that you can create by bringing a product to market that is maybe more sustainable than what's come before or improves people's lives. Then there's the kind of material impact of that product because yeah, we design a product for maybe today or the next year or the year after that, but actually most of the materials that we're using fundamentally will last in that form for centuries, or at least decades. And so how can you make something that remains relevant for that amount of time? You fundamentally you can't because we don't know what the world is going to look like in 10 years. If we think back what happened 10 years ago, it's crazy to think how far technology has come. And you have to create, I mean, it's why we believe in creating objects that are as simple as possible because then their core function is, something that can remain and then will last, and therefore it will serve a purpose as a tool for as long as possible, rather than chucking in a load of sort of things or reacting to trends. We want to create something that, in its material value, has value. So it's a way that you could kind of break it down into its component parts and recapture those materials, those the electronics, the battery, the plastics, the metals, whatever it may be that you've used to put that object together. And then from a design perspective, creating something that is simple and beautiful and encourages a sense of pride. The customer, you want someone to want to own that product and you want to look after it. But if they don't want it anymore, that they see enough value in passing it on. And rather than it being something that's a bit complicated that they didn't really like and that therefore they don't really want to put that on anybody else. And when it comes to it, they don't hand it on or pass it down. They just sort of put it in the bin and hope that nobody judges them for it.
Yeah, that's the scary part, isn't it? If you have the old, I mean, you have first the design brief, which is kind of like, okay, that's things we want to do. But then on the other hand, it's like what everything else that comes with it. Like you want to build something that's going to be forever. Let's say the next 10 years, people are going to
Yeah.
love it.
I mean, we talk about sustainability, but really it's about
And
future proofing. It's making a product remain relevant and remain
yeah,
useful and remain functional, or and it's equally valid to create objects or create things that are designed not to last, that are designed to serve a temporary purpose and then to be able to return to a valuable material, as easily as possible or into the ground, as something that can break down and decompose in a safe way. It's not about necessarily designing everything for longevity, but certainly designing for an appropriate lifespan.
I see you're not using the word purpose here.
Well,
I, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's even I use it on my website. The design we design with purpose, but I don't know. It can be so inflated, and it's so difficult to just break it down
it's funny
what it
because
is.
I don't think we use that word on our site anywhere, and it's not something that's really a part of the language that we use. But we're definitely a purpose-driven agency. I mean, everybody in the team has a sense of responsibility as a designer that we are crafting, the future to some extent. We're not in control of much. I mean, the world is far too complex for that. But within these little systems that we work within, with each product, we have that object is going to be in the hands of people and it's going to be giving people jobs and responsibilities, and it's part of a system that's made up of loads of different stakeholders, and we have a responsibility to think about that wider system, not just that product, and design for that and design to nudge behavior to be better across that supply chain all the way through to that product's end of life, however we can. And I think that is what gives us purpose, then great. And we will continue to do that good work and because we love it and we think that, it gives it meaning. It gives that object meaning to have been not just, oh, let's make this pretty thing and now we'll do it like that because it's cheap. But like actually what's
Exactly. And then
yeah.
let's move to another one. I remember that on the last conversation you talked that you want to be a responsible citizen as a designer, to be a responsible citizen, and I really like that. Yeah, to take responsibility of the product, of the resources, of the environment, everything we do, and I mean that reflects on your in your products.
When it was about 2020, 2021, there was a lot of conflict in my mind about the state of the climate, and also the systems that we work within, this system that's absolutely reliant on production and consumption, and the work that we do, and thinking maybe it would be better for the environment if I put some of my energy anyway into something else, not creating or adding to this, not creating new product or adding to the problem of potential like waste and impact and carbon and everything. But I had a really interesting conversation with a guy called Rupert Reed, who has many clever things to say. And he started something called the Climate Majority Project. And he said something which to me is now really, really obvious, which is that as a human being, the best thing that you can do when it comes to trying to make a difference to the climate crisis is to apply the best skills you have. So not go out and necessarily stand on a picket line or stick yourself to the road, but not necessarily just not recycling and cutting down your flights, although all valid things to do, but actually apply the training and the skills you have that you are good at in the best way. And so I see that the responsibility is not just in me as a designer to be thinking about the impact of human, non-human, and planetary need in every project we do, but also my responsibility as a person on this planet, as a human in this society, want to help protect that society. I mean, that's the point, right? Like we need a purpose in life. It is to be a responsible citizen.
Yeah, that would be actually great to as a hat, or I don't know, like as a movement for the design schools and professionals and all
Yes,
that. So
and it is interesting. Maybe
go for it.
well,
Yeah, it
okay,
is,
well,
and
we'll
it's
design something up, and you can promote it on your on your podcast.
yeah, definitely we will do that. No, absolutely. Is that the reason why you guys went into a B Corp, or was that before you
We
had the
started
conversation?
talking about B Corp a long time before, back in like 2018, actually, when it was really, really novel for anybody to be B Corp. But we didn't actually fully go through the process until after the pandemic. And I think we were accredited in 2022 or 23. And one of the reasons was that we just believed in the movement. We believe in what B Corp stands for. We feel like it's been an incredible process to go through, and it definitely taught us a lot about how to run a really good ethical business, more so than from a sustainability perspective. Actually, the actual how to run a really productive environment, that's conducive to good work with good people. And yeah, really proud of the B Corp badge on our website.
I don't know if it took a lot of convincing inside of your team to go towards that. Since I mean, reading your book, it feels that everybody is aligned with each other. Like it's aligned in a way of that's kind of like the mission, not aligned of maybe there's some people that have different opinions and you listen to each other, you have respect to each other, aligned to build something that's lasting.
We're all
But
aligned,
you know, and
like that's for sure. Everybody has different ideas and opinions, and that's if we didn't, then it would be a useless design agency because we wouldn't be challenging each
right,
other, and so the ideas that came out would be pretty one-sided. But no, it's everybody at Morama believes that our work is not just to design a beautiful object, but is to think about the context in which that sits and the impact in which it has and the future in which we are ultimately like that object is going to persist into. And so I love the fact that everybody really wants to explore those futures, and we do a lot of, you mentioned earlier, like the idea of like futures design, and we do a lot of exploratory work off brief. If we've got a topic that one of the team's interested in, we'll just all get behind it for a couple of weeks and just talk about it and research it. And yeah, by the end of it, we're just like really full of ideas. And then it just sort of sits and percolates, and suddenly little kind of relevances and connections come out of that, which we can bring into the, existing projects, but also just really help us in navigating like how we want the world to look like what are we working towards, because even just the topic that we were discussing the other day, a lot of people in the world that believe the natural evolution of humans, the next step in evolution is to become much more at one with the machine. And with the evolution of AI, and robotics and everything, you can really see this shift happening. And yet there's this equal and opposite powerful movement of people that absolutely believe that we are so deeply connected to nature that it is impossible for us to separate ourselves from that. And even just really having a discussion about the impact of that, without putting necessarily our own opinions into the mix, but like, what does it look like? What is the future of education in a transhumanist world? What's the future of education if we look, well, what's the history of education if we take a more animist approach? And I think it's really fascinating to think about that, particularly for me, having just like recently had a child and knowing that these are the sort of tensions that are coming, in his future, where there is this like increasing challenge. Yeah, challenge between the technology and nature, and particularly when the climate is becoming and the planet is becoming increasingly impacted by what we're doing as humans in society.
And in such an increased speed that it actually it's scary. If you think about like what happened in the last couple of 2 years, just in 2 years, in terms of education, AI, what's happening with all of those newest technologies. So yeah, that's scary. I mean, I have also a kid, and it's mind blowing what's happening. And in my opinion, one of the best approaches is to help them learn, to be to love the learning part, to love to learn new skills, kind of like the entrepreneurial approach. There's a problem, solve it. There's another one, solve it. Instead of like learning it as it used to be 10 years ago, 15 years ago, because I don't think that ship is sailed.
I mean, we have an education system that's still very much a legacy from the early industrial revolution that's taught us to turn up on time and be a good factory worker. But actually, there's this level of creativity and critical thinking and ability to adapt that we're going to need to have the resilience to meet the challenges the future brings. And that comes, for me, that comes from collaboration and being able to bring different people together to make things, to create solutions fast rather than working, independently in silo, and being able to do that in a really kind of adaptable way. And it's obviously like much of what we do at work, to be honest, because every brief brings a completely different product. We have to learn a whole new set of skills to tackle that brief. I have to understand like a completely different technical requirements, build new relationships with new stakeholders, new manufacturers, new supply chains. Everything is changed. Everything is new. It is the fun part. It's the bit that I love the most, is that we're constantly learning. And I think that humans are curious creatures. We want to learn given the right circumstances. But in many cases, we've just created an environment where everything is quite simple. It's quite easy, in particularly in the Western world. And so I'm really interested in what's coming in the future, because I think there's going to be challenges, but there's obviously the climate crisis puts a huge amount of pressure on things like migration, which puts a huge amount of pressure on politics, material resources, and unpredictability of material pricing is going to change the way we make. We're looking to onshore as globalization perhaps starts to shrink. It's posing a lot of opportunities as well as, potential for challenges. And I don't know, innovation comes from those moments.
Yeah, when there's
Yeah.
pressure, then there's innovation. You look a lot into the future.
Yeah. I mean, you can't,
Have you,
we learn a lot, I think, by imagining plausible futures. And there's this that I love called Fruitopia, which is, it's like looking at ways in which we can approach future challenges in a realistic way, rather than perhaps like the paralysis of dystopia and the unrealistic kind of optimistic hopefulness of utopia, which
Minority Report?
yes. Well, so like that's what we do a lot. Idea of Fruitopia,
Right.
exploring those. But you learn a lot about yourself and also we learn a lot about each other within the team, actually, because everybody has like a slightly different view on what we think the future is going to be. Nothing more telling, I think, than asking somebody what they think about the future, because it really reveals kind of we all have opinions about the past, but it's ultimately fact because it's done, it's there. But nobody knows really what's going to happen in the future. And so,
And then give him some beers, two, 3 beers, and then it's going to change a bit more and deeper
yeah,
and getting deeper. It's
yeah.
so
It's
interesting.
very interesting.
Yeah, it's super interesting. And did you read the book of Nick Foster about the future?
No, I've not read that yet. Is it good?
It's good. It's because it's not this about this utopia, but it's more like observing and those different kind of people that look at the future different, like the could, like the should, and so on. It's like looking from a different angle, not just imagining, what the future is going to be, flying cars, let's say. I just talked with the people in the corner store, how they interact with each other. And then you see so much about the future and how people are going to be in the next couple of years. They're still going to go and do some shopping. They're going to do some buying some cigarettes in the old fashioned way. It's not all shiny and
Yeah.
Minority Report style.
I mean, human nature isn't going to disappear because we have a new form of technology or the next smartphone. We are designed to be empathetic, to connect with each other, to be sociable, and to have those moments where, as you say, you sit and chat on a street corner. And I think there was an interesting period of time when I was teaching at the Royal College of Art. So I was an associate lecturer on the Design Futures platform. And every year I would sit down with a different cohort of students and we would explore the potential future scenarios. And it was really fascinating. And these were, they were young people, so mostly in their early 20s. And they had very, in many cases, quite dystopian visions of the future. So they were taking their ideas to quite negative directions. I mean, these were kids that had key teenage years in lockdown, have grown up around technology. You've got Trump, you've got a lot of fake news, you've got this, yeah, there's a lot kind of going on. And so, yeah, there's a lot of feeling that life wasn't going to get better as the years go by. Things were going to get more and more difficult. And understandably, like I think a lot of people feel that or believe that. But also it really depends on your viewpoint as to what better or worse is. One of my roles, or at least what I felt my role was to bring it back to the human level. So yes, you've painted a picture where there is increasing level of data and surveillance, and there's nobody has any privacy anymore, and social media is become this like real life, and everyone's sort of living in this really weird digital world, and et cetera, et cetera. And you've painted this idea that we've kind of lost our freedoms. But what does that look like when you start to think about somebody at a human level? Like, what does a 21-year-old, if you're talking about it in their own terms, do in that situation? Like, what do you think their day looks like? What do you think their reaction is? What do you think their feelings are about this situation? And when we actually got down to it to a human level, then that's where things got really, really interesting and a lot less dark and negative and a lot more human and hopeful. And I think because actually, if you really think about it, we're still going to find ways to do the things that are essential to us: eat, sleep, keep warm, drink, clean. And then the next step is connect, we still have family, we still have friends. No one takes those away. And then you still have creativity, you still have ways of finding entertainment, making music, gaming, going out and playing football. And actually then life doesn't look that crazy anymore because it's like, well, if you still have all of those things, then isn't that what's important? And so, yeah, it's really interesting. I find it fascinating.
It is fascinating. Just imagine, you have all the gadgets and then you're sick and you stay at home, drink your tea and are, I don't know, on the sofa on the blanket. All technology, everything. And you're like still sick as 50 years ago. But it seems to be very positive on the future, what's happening.
Yeah. Well, I see no benefit in walking around with a frown. It's much I'm not to say that there aren't days where I'm finding it difficult to know, like, to find the motivation to get out of bed. Everybody has those days, but I'm very fortunate. I have an amazing environment to come into work to. The team are amazing and we do great projects with great clients. And most importantly, we have the freedom to push and pull the business in the directions we want to go. And so if we're, as a team, really passionate about something and we want to go and explore it, we can do that. And that's a really, really fortunate position to be in. And I'm obviously, I recognize how grateful, how lucky I am to have that freedom. But we don't take it for granted, that's for sure.
How do you do that? You talk about finding the freedom in business.
Yeah,
You are the owner in this case. You're
yeah.
the
So
founder, and to mention even a female founder, which is rare, even after you wrote here.
I did write that once. That was 10 years ago. Yes. That was one of the first articles I wrote that got a lot of attention because of the title. For those who haven't read it, I don't believe that men are better designers than women. But if you were to judge from history, and design teaching, you would think that men must be better because no one ever talks about women. So yeah, I'm doing my best to change that opinion. I am the founder and the director of Morrama, and therefore effectively it's not in the control of anybody other than myself and the team. And if we want to set ourselves a new requirement for the kind of projects we take on, we can do that. Obviously, we have targets to meet. I have to make enough to pay everybody in the business and keep the lights on. But we approach every project with the same sense of belief and purpose, if you will. And that means that we don't just turn things away because of on the face of it, we think that it's not like, oh, that's not a sustainable project. It's like nothing's a sustainable project. I mean, we're making products here, like we're not ignorant to the fact that they are going to have an impact. If we've got a client that doesn't really understand that impact and hasn't really thought about it that much before, that's great because we get to change that and we get to take them on that journey. And so there's no requirements to come work with Morama other than, you've got an open mind. And so we're happy to take on all kinds of jobs, all kinds of projects, and we find the beauty and the interest and the intrigue in all of them. So yeah, I think when you have that kind of mindset, and then we've created that kind of culture within the business, then it's a great place to work, and it's a great place to be. I come in 5 days a week to the office, and I enjoy it.
It's
It
a,
is
it's
a
a
privilege.
privilege.
Yeah, yeah. I don't underestimate that, but I did work freaking hard to get it
Mm.
here.
No, I mean, you're still, I bet you're still
Yeah,
working
I
hard.
mean,
So,
obviously every day, but yeah, it's and it takes nurturing it.
so it's no overnight success.
I mean, maybe one day. I'm waiting for that overnight to happen, but
Yeah,
until then,
I know. There's 10
10 years
years overnight
maybe, and
success.
you never know. I don't know what'll happen in 10 years. I mean, maybe Marama will still exist, but it might look like something completely different because we
Uh,
also want to remain adaptable and agile to the needs of what business needs, but also to what we believe business
uh,
should want, and tell them, you should want this because this is what's important for what's
uh.
coming.
What's for you something that you believe business is something that doesn't need to be something that just to provide revenue or growth, or you believe in growing as some big companies?
I think businesses should all be regenerative. And when I say regenerative, and I've thought about this a lot as to what this term means. And for me, it's about giving more than you take. And obviously, you've got that in terms of, say, regenerative farming or regenerative like manufacturing. Some instances make sense, but actually, from a business perspective, I think it's about doing more for the people that you work with, the communities that you work within, the industries that you operate within, to upskill them, educate them, work with them, support them on their own journeys and growth towards whether that be sustainability or rebuilding community. And so, like at Marama, we do whatever we can to upskill ourselves with regards to what sustainability and regenerative design is, but we'll share that with the wider community. I've done a huge amount of work setting up Design Declares, which is a growing community that supports the industrial design industry, but also graphic communication service and digital. And it's bringing people together to talk about these topics and to learn about how we can implement more sustainable and regenerative thinking into our design process across countries. This is the global movement now. And that is something that we can do at Marama because we have an influence, we have a network, we've built a reputation that allows us to demand a certain level of respect. And so when we then have these kind of conversations and we share this kind of passionate topic, it gets listened to. And I think that as a brand that has a voice, you have an opportunity to stand for something. And for companies that don't stand for anything, I think it's such a waste. It's such a waste. And it's like there's no integrity there.
It is. And it's, yeah, I think what you mentioned, like the waste, such a waste of resources, of people that you can go towards
Mm.
something that's meaningful, not just something that just round and round and round and goes. I think it's mind blowing that so much is just done because it needs to be done instead of like
Yes.
with intention. So how do you take that energy? I mean, where does this energy come from? Because You seem a bit of restless.
Yeah, I'm a restless person. For sure. I am working on about 17 different things at any one time. Most of what the team do, I think, is try and make sure that I finish one project before starting another one and actually gets things done. But I just think there's a lot to be done, and there's not enough time in the day to do it all. There's just a lot of work that I'd like to do. There's a lot that I would like to see changed in the world. And I'm always thinking about ways in which that could be done. I like do a lot of research. I think I have an amazing team of designers who honestly do much more design work than I do these days. I do a lot of strategy work, a lot of research, a lot of writing, a lot of thinking and engaging in kind of conversation with other people and bringing that knowledge and experience and insight into the team and sharing their knowledge and experience and insight outwardly into the rest of the community. And so, yeah, I'm just like a conduit most of the time. And that just gives me a lot of energy because there's just a lot of like ideas and knowledge like flowing through me both ways. So I haven't really thought about that before. I think that's really where I get my energy from.
Yeah, it seems like the sharing and curiosity, like a little
Yeah,
kid
yeah. Oh,
in a candy
definitely.
store. It is. It's. I think when our profession is such a privilege to be a child or to let your inner child out without being needing to justify
I've
it.
definitely become, yeah. I've become
Sometimes it
more
feels like it.
childlike as I've gotten more comfortable and more confident with myself as a creative, and definitely had that in me really early on in my life and my career. But then I think for a while, in the sort of fourth, fifth, sixth year of Morama, it all got a bit heavy and a bit more focused on growing the business. Now I've come back around to realizing that actually, if you're not having fun, there's no point. It's I mean, a life is fundamentally a role, a game to be played, and if you're not having fun doing it, then kind of pointless. So yeah, and I want the environment, with every project that we work on, the environment that we create for the people working on that, whether that's in the team or with our clients or stakeholders, to be one of joy and one of passion and one of pride, because otherwise the work we're doing it's just it's
Again,
just pointless.
pointless.
Yeah.
And have fun on it. It's fun. I had Joe Foster on my podcast, the founder of Freebook, and then I asked him, "So, give me your tips on life and business, and is there something you want to share?" He's like, "Yeah, there are three things that you need to know. First is you need to have fun." I'm like, oh, "Okay, I can do that." Second one, have fun, and third one, fun. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, got it. And he's been doing great, and he's 93 now. So
Very good
nice
advice.
person to look up to. Cool. There's something that I always ask. I mean, we can go on with some other topics, but one thing that I really like to ask is, what is something that you believe that nobody else does?
Oh, I believe, and it's not that nobody else believes, for sure. I think that a lot of people have lost a connection with. I believe that we're all connected to each other, and that there's a stream of consciousness that runs through everybody and runs through everything. This is not novel. There's lots of people who believe this, but I think that there's a increasing number of people who have lost the ability to feel that connection. And I think sometimes for me, I have a sense of like intuition about an idea or something that is really hard to explain, but it's just like, no, this is the way that it is. This is the way that it should be. And I then have to spend a lot of time trying to work out why it should be like that rather than it just be a feeling, it to be something that is known and can be explained. But yeah, I think that deep kind of sense of connection is something that we all need to tap back into because historically we've all known about it. There's plenty of there's still tribes around the world that innately understand and believe that, and this connection that we have with nature and with each other. And I think that's something that I'm a big believer in. And I think that's why it's so important to have such positive energy, because you draw that to you if you have it. And we've all been in a room with someone who's like deeply negative, and just being around them like sucks out the energy even before they open their mouth. And there's no, the only way that can be possible is if there's some form of connection between the two of you before, if it's not in words. So yeah, I think that's something that I believe in, which not many people really spend much time thinking about. And I think we should think about it more, because I think it would change the way we act if we all really thought about it and the implications that
Yeah,
would
when
have.
you listen to yourself. Yeah. Oh, that's great. I like this ending. But I really want to say that your book is. I want to give you a big praise of the book because I really liked
Thank you.
reading it. refreshing, and it's something you can start reading and read through it. And I like that you give it a voice to your team of people that actually impacted you and Morrama as well, which it's nice. It doesn't feel like very me, but it's us.
It's funny having put a book out into the world, because at the time when you're writing it, well, for me, when I was writing it, felt very easy to get the words out, because it felt like, the way I've described it, it was like a dish in the oven that was cooked and ready to go, and I just needed to get it out of the oven. However, once I got it all out onto a page, I was like, no, this isn't very good. And it took my wife is the editor, and she's the one person that has been on this journey with me from the beginning and knows me and the business really, really well. And so she was the best person to actually edit the book, and she did an amazing job and given me the confidence to actually put it out into the world, because it's one thing like putting it all down on paper, but there's a whole other thing like putting it into print, in a physical book that will be on somebody's shelf and in someone's hand. But it's not long and it's not complicated to read. And I like that about it, because my attention span is not long either. And I don't like big words. So, we've all picked up a book that we're like, oh, this is interesting. You read through the first chapter and it's like thought provoking, but you have to chew on every sentence. And it's like, it's an effort, and you get to like halfway and you're like, oh, that'll do. It's like, no, I want you to read from the very beginning to the very end. It's not hard to do.
No, those books are horrible. Yeah, no, that's a good book. It's light, but it's deep.
And it's printed on good paper by good people with good inks and down the road from us, and that all mattered. And we make no money from it because it's far too expensive to make a book these days for the price that you sell it for. But that's okay, because it's just a lovely, lovely thing to have in the world that is a stamp of like us, and this is what we stand for, and this is what we believe in, and this is what we want to share with the world and hope they learn something.
How come what was the intention of writing a book?
I don't know, a mark in the sand, a celebration, curious to know what it's like to write a book. I love the idea of writing more books, and you got to start somewhere.
Cool. So what's your next book? Topics,
I'd
I
like
guess you
to
have
write something around joy and design for resilience. I think is something that's a topic that's close to my heart right now, but I need a couple more years to really like dig into the subject and look at kind of what other people are doing and learn from other cultures and other countries and other ways of thinking and practicing. So it will be a lot more of a thought-provoking, deeply researched book than the last one.
I mean, you're good on thought-provoking. I mean, the article you wrote here, it's great.
Well, yes, I do write a lot. So
and it is.
I do have a blog if anyone's interested that comes from Morrama. So it's on, you can access it through our website, but it's called 4 Things a Week. I don't actually write it every week. I actually write it every fortnight, but I used to write every week. I should probably change the name to 4 Things a Fortnight. But yeah.
Yeah. That one makes sense.
That's a little bit more kind of, sort of reflection on what's happening in the world right now, and ideas and innovation and technologies and things that are coming out. So yeah, I mean, I write a lot.
I like it. It's also, I'm going to put it on the show notes. I mean, it's a great newsletter when it's out there. So when it comes out, it's great. So Jo, thank you so much for your insights, for your thoughts, and the work you're doing.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on, Roberto. It's been a lovely conversation.
At Conversations with Roberto, we believe we can build better brands, experiences, and products by having conversations and learnings from experts and leaders in their fields. Send this episode to a friend or friends that need those insights and frameworks, and feel free to rate us and review us on your favorite platform. Thank you for listening to Conversations with Roberto. Bye.